He's just this ridiculously over the top, and he's just constantly telling Drift, look, just go home, doll. There's just no point. You're wasting your time. You're wasting my time. I have to come and clean up after you. The reason that I thought this story was really quite interesting and fun is what it does is it turns that I want to be a superhero thing into, okay, I'm kind of fighting every single force in my life to be a superhero. Because every force in my life and every force when I'm a superhero says, don't be a superhero. Right? And I'm not, she's not Batman. She's not driven to do this because of something that happened to her. She's had a relatively good life. It's more like she has powers and she's like, okay, but if I have powers, then I have to be a superhero, right? I mean, that's the way it works, yeah?
It's almost like they're taking the responsibility, even though it's like it's been a terrible experience.
Yeah, and
great power becomes terrible weekends.
and I just thought it would be a really interesting idea, and it's not one I've really seen before. Like where there's someone who, and it's more than just, oh, you're a terrible superhero, oh, your powers are terrible. It's more than that. It is literally a case of every single thing she interacts with and encounters says, don't be a superhero. just go home and sit down and do your homework and don't stick your head above above the parapet, as it were. And I think that's a really interesting dilemma for any character to face. It's something that's a little bit different that I've not actually read a comic quite like that before.
It's cool. Have you ever seen the anime My Hero Academia?
I've not seen it, no, but I'm aware of it.
You should watch it because it might give you some ideas for that, because it's not there's not someone exactly like that, but I get that same like vibe where, because in there, hero is like a job. It's like you actually like have to work and earn it, but for the most part, it's because you're birthed with the superpower and you're trying to go to school, learn how to use your superpower, and based on your level of superpower and how well you use it, you can get ranked and get fame and money and all that stuff as a job. But it does sometimes seem like some people do it reluctantly. Some people do it because they want to. Some people do it for the fame. Some people do it just to be a hero, right? Like, there's a bunch of different reasons. But there, I don't think there's quite one where somebody's like absolutely terrible, but they feel like they are absolutely required to be a superhero. That's why it's interesting. But there's all the other ones around that. That's why all the other reasons to do it.
Yeah, I just thought this was, and I can't claim full idea on this, because I did workshop it a little bit with I forget his first name now, Josh Skyber, I think it is, who's one of the guys who stepped forward. I think it's Josh. Sorry, I'm horrible with names, so sorry if I got that wrong. But I mean, I workshopped it a bit with him. He was like, "Hey, can we do like a D-list hero and they're crap, and they're really awful?" And I kind of went, "Well, what if? Yeah, okay, let's go with that. But what if also they have like this perfect life, and like everything about them is kind of like, okay, well, I want to just be a normal person, but I also have powers. So what the hell am I supposed to do? Because I can't just abandon this like gift." In big inverted, really big inverted commas here, because then I'd feel like I was wasting it, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person who wastes their gift. So yeah, no, I just thought it would be a lot of fun to write that story, and I'm dipping into other series as well. Violet #2. You may or may not know, has already been delivered.
Nice.
Done and done. So that's all finished, and I've got another comic that's ready to go that I was going to talk to you guys about, and I can't talk about that now because it's not going until next year. But we are working on an arc for Violet #3 to #5. We're going to do a 3-issue arc for Violet now. Which is, one of the most fun things about comics, and I know you guys know this because look how much you've done, is writing the arcs that you know you're going to follow. Like, oh man, this is so cool, and this is gonna come together like this, and it's going to look really cool when we get to this point here. And Jennifer colors the way that I approach comics because of her approach. That's one of the wonderful things about working in a true collaboration, where not one person is writing the story, but you're writing it together. Because I'm a bit of I suppose you'd say I'm a bit of a chameleon. In that, like, I will adapt my story style and my writing style to the people who I'm working with. So when I write with John, it tends to be quite lighthearted and a little bit ridiculous, you know, a little bit overblown. That's the kind of comic that he writes. You know, that's the Blue Shift or the Penumbra. When I write with Jennifer, it goes dark, like properly dark. A lot of the things that happen to Violet are very, very unpleasant, and arguably Unnamed it has the darkest superpower in my entire universe. Because her power, I can now reveal, because readers have seen it, I can now reveal that Unnamed's power is to force you into a bubble universe where you live out your worst nightmare until she lets you go, and then you return with whatever physical manifestation has occurred within that bubble universe. So it's real. You actually live through it.
So it's like literally putting you in hell for a moment, and then, but you know, it's just temporarily.
It gets worse because she also has to watch. She is unable to be unaware of what's going on in the bubble universe that she creates.
Damn.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that girl is damaged. You know, quite seriously. And I'm not talking about the burns.
So she has to see other people's hells in order to do that to them to begin with.
And she is desperate to be a hero. That is literally all she wants. She wants to use her power for good.
That's probably a good thing. Could be worse.
Until she gets taken over by an alien, yeah. Then it's less good. So yeah, you know, it was, you know, as I said, Unnamed has one of the darkest powers I've ever come up with. She's sort of like the Scarecrow on steroids. And makes it real.
Yeah, so yeah, the scarecrow if it worked, you know, like if it was real, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, on a side note, that was one of my favorite moments in Blackest Night, the Green Lantern series.
Yeah.
Where like Scarecrow had just been popping up all the way through, and you're like, why? And then they split the rings. And like the rings go off to find other people to, you know, to sort of wield them. And Scarecrow gets the second fear ring. And you're just like, I get it now. I get why we've been looking at Jonathan Crane in a bar all this time. You know? And you know what? Well, you know, Lex Luthor gets the greed ring, and Mira, because Aquaman's died, she gets the red ring, the anger ring. And you know, you get the various people, and you're like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Okay, yeah, I get that makes sense. And you're like, right, so that character wasn't there for no reason. They weren't just showing off a random DC character. I should probably have realized that, but I was sat there going, why? Like, I mean, I like the character and all, but why?
See, I know about the series, but I have not read Blackest Night, and it's a very fascinating just concept, the whole story. But yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know Scarecrow was in that and got the fear ring. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, because obviously back then the fear ring didn't go off your fear; it went off the fear of everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. So anyone around you who was afraid. So what you do is you make a manifestation for their fear, and I have to admit, to some degree, that's what inspired me for Unnamed. You know, it's like, okay, you have the manifestation for their fear. You don't feed off it in quite the same way, but yeah, I mean, I loved that. That was really, really fun to just kind of go, oh, okay, I get it. Yep, I'm with you. And yeah, so you know, we're doing Violet 3 to 5. I'm doing Fauna number 2 with Dorothy's Gene. Dorothy's Gene, the writer of Spirit's Destiny. If you're aware of that one. She worked with me on the first Fauna as well, and when I work with her, it goes towards kind of like I suppose it becomes more like a sort of a community-driven story. Oh, excuse me. It's all about the community that this hero exists in, and yes, the hero is the main character, but the community becomes the focus. And that's just, again, it's just the way I adapt my style to work with Dorothy's. I'm working on, what else am I working on? I know this, yeah. I'm working on a comic about vigilance, she's going to appear for the first time before, she's going to appear for the first time in her timeline after this comic is set, but before this comic comes out. That makes sense in my head.
So funny.
They're coming out of order because she's a minor character in another comic, which is already ready. Like, it's the next superhero comic going to come out. But she's her actual story of how she got from spoiled rich girl to supervillain is kind of an interesting one, and I wanted to tell it. But again, I wanted to tell it after we'd seen her for the first time and seen that she's quite interesting. So I've picked up that with another writer who I've not worked with before. I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes out. I just there are a whole bunch of things that are going on right now. They're a lot of fun. I'm also doing the genre breaking thing again. Where I take something from one of our comics, one of our sci-fi comics. We've got it on Kickstarter right now. We've got Infiltration, which is the audio drama version of Infiltration: The Bug War number 2, one of our sci-fi comics. And turning a comic into an audio is always an interesting experience because you suddenly get. With a comic, you always show, not tell. With an audio, you can't. You literally cannot do that. It does not work. And the challenge of making the story still work when you don't have the images to support it necessarily. I mean, you could sit there and read the comic with it if you want to, but I don't want to make that a requirement to enjoy it. And sometimes it's the tiniest things that make it work. And you get, I ended up having this, I did the Foley for the first one, Declaration, which you can also get. So this is number 2, but you can also get number 1 if you missed it. It comes to about $7 for both of them. Maybe 8. My conversion sort of in my head.
Looking through the Kickstarter.
And in the first one, I did the Foley, and literally what I did for one of the scenes is I had the Foley artist literally walk on stone, just take steps on stone, and then we had a shower turn on. And you don't need anything else. You know exactly what happened in that scene, right? You like it's like you hear them get off the bed, you hear them stand up, you hear them sort of groan a bit, and then you just have these sort of 5 or 6 footsteps across stone, and then the shower turns on. You just hear clink. You know what happened there, and that might be 3 panels in a comic.
Yeah.
But because of the way the audio offers you this option, you can do it, and any single person who listens to that knows exactly what that looks like. Everyone's done it at some point, especially when hungover, as that character is at that time. And I am told, I don't drink, but I am told that showers are manna from heaven when you are hungover. so you have this lovely opportunity to tell the story in a different way.
Nice. You see, it's interesting too because with audio, like it's almost like there's some things that you can do a lot quicker, and other things that you have to really like fill the room with, like to make it an experience. Like it's pretty interesting. It's the same with movies and books. Like in a book, you can leave a lot up to the reader's mind, but there's certain things you have to fill out. Where in a movie, you need to show it because it's all visual, and with audio, it's all audio. So like that shower, like you said, it could be 3 panels, but it could be 2 sounds, and all of a sudden they know what's going on. And then other scenes, like you could.
And then other scenes, it's a nightmare. Infiltration was by far the biggest challenge. So we've done 7 of these. This is by far the hardest, because the problem is that the main character is relatively taciturn and is exploring an alien world where none of the aliens speak English.
Nice.
So you're kind of like, okay, well, how do I indicate that what's going on here is the little alien kid is banging rocks together while the large alien is sort of practicing thrusting his spear, like combat drill or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. It's basically impossible. So that's where it becomes interesting as a creator, because what do you compromise on? Where do you say, okay, you know what? I don't need this aspect. It doesn't work. It just muddies the water. I want to take it out. In fact, in that same scene, there was also another one who was stirring a metal pot. Right? And all in that same scene, because it was supposed to be a family all together. And it was like, okay, well, I get that. And the main character is sort of talking about how, there's no sort of separate military in this society. They're all families, right? So you can't bomb the military without bombing their families as well. And because he's gone there to identify like strategic targets so they can bombard the planet and fight back, because these aliens killed their team at first contact. And he's sort of there going, yeah. But at the same time, you've got this little bug alien sort of bashing rocks together, and this guy sort of, and you got this pot stirring, with the metal pot. And I'm like, no, we gotta like cut 2 of those, because it makes no sense whatsoever. No one listening to this is even going to understand.
It's happening.
So it makes it. It makes it really interesting when you're trying to figure out how you deal with these issues as a creator. Because there isn't one answer to that question. There's no one way of dealing with it. And as the person who wrote the comic, as the person who's directing the audio drama, I've got to make decisions. And that is one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure you guys know as well, making a decision to remove something that is integral to the story, but doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a case of, in this case, in an audio short, it's not a case of, you can just put it in somewhere else or put it in later or move stuff around. No, it literally is just a case of that sound doesn't make sense, goodbye.
Yeah.
Which is, it's probably one of the toughest things as a writer turning a comic into an audio, I think.
Yeah, because like you were saying before, you want it so that they don't need the comic, but you also want it so they can enjoy it with the comic. And so, yeah, you can't just like throw away like huge things, but you have like there is stuff you have to like just kind of skip over and just hope they follow along accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, it's about making both of them stand alone and also combinable, and that's the challenge, and that's the interesting part for me as a creator.
Yeah. Intriguing. It's the same with movies, though, too. Like, honestly, people do that all the time. They're complaining, like, why didn't they put this in the movie? And it's like, because it's already 2.5 hours long. Like, what did you want them to do? Like, you know, they can't add everything that each individual person thought was necessary. Like, I think there was a huge thing with like the whole Harry Potter trilogy, the series. There was a particular character that they just removed because like the addition of that character would have added hours of footage for like, you know, 3 different movies, and it's like, so it's interesting.
Lord of the Rings is another good example with the complete removal of several characters, including Tom Bombadil and various others, just because they aren't necessary to the story at the end of the day.
Even the extended versions that are like 3 to 4 hours each, like even those couldn't have handled more characters. Like it's it's too intense. It's too much.
Yeah, yeah. I have watched through the entire extended, but this was a few years ago now. Goodness. I think it was before the first Hobbit movie came out that I watched through the extended versions.
Yeah, so did I.
It's a few years ago now. I'll be honest. I'm not the most massive fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. I'm really not a fan of the Harry Potter movies.
Whoa. All right. Well, this is where you go.
Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of the Harry Potter books, and I am live and let live on people enjoying the movies. But personally, not for me.
Like, I like the movies. I like the Lord of the Rings movies way better. But yeah, they were just like good examples of like having to cut stuff. Like the Lord of the Rings, like my dad used to read those to me growing up. So like, you know, that's why I like those. We had the old cartoons. Like there's like little cartoons that are drawn like they're from like the 10th, you know, like they're like so old. Yeah, no, like it's definitely something where yeah, again, even the extended versions, like because in the book, you could describe an entire battle in maybe 2 pages.
Yeah.
But like you can't do that in a movie. Like that's one of the things that makes the movie epic is finally being able to see the battle of the 5 armies, right? Like you can't just remove that. Like
I should say I actually did enjoy the Hobbit movies.
Yeah,
like,
it was amazing. Like,
I actually enjoyed them a lot more than I enjoyed the Lord of the Rings movies. Relative to the book, I mean.
Relative to the book, yeah, I got you, yeah. Because like comparatively, like I like The Hobbit better, but I think like it's pretty close to the Lord of the Rings. But it also was made quite a few years later, so it had, you know, it had time to like get better.
Yeah, they had time to learn, didn't they, from the things that did and didn't work.
Yeah, and because it was going backwards, like it didn't really need to. They didn't need any continuity things in the sense of
that helps too. Yeah. Although they did add a whole bunch of continuity stuff to make the Lord of the Rings hand together better, Radagast being a good example.
Yes, yeah.
Who doesn't feature in The Hobbit at all in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did a very good job, but I like those a lot. And I still remember, like, because the old cartoon, like, the first time you're introduced to Smaug, and then, like, the first time I saw it, like, the real, you know, the CGI version, I'm just like,
whoa, yeah.
I was so jacked. I was like, yes, like the only time I've ever seen this was when I was like 10. Like, oh yeah, that was definitely epic.
Yeah. So origin stories and other stuff.
Breaking the law.
Well, we're gonna go to
actually one more point on origin stories just to round us back quickly.
Yeah.
The what you just said about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is a very good point because you can literally insert an origin story whenever you like, right? So you don't have to do it at the beginning. There we are. Now we're round back to origin stories.
That's what I was actually thinking. I was like, oh, that's a good way to like segue back into the.
Nice.